here, you'll know what to expect. And yes, believe it or not, some people think West Virginia is Western Virginia. No, it's really a state, people, I swear. This is West Virginia. Now, as you can see, this state is a ton of mountains, coal mines, poor people, and a few cities of note. But there's actually some pockets in this state that are thriving, kinda. And if West Virginia is a mountain state, the people who live there are mountain people, right? You can call them mountaineers, but they're not all straw hat wearing, banjo picking, overall wearing yokels. There's hardly any of that here. For example, we're going to get up here in the far northern part of the state. West Virginia isn't really a southern state, but it's not Midwestern either. It certainly isn't in the east, but it's not really in the north. It's just Appalachia. It truly is in its own little corner of the country. In fact, West Virginia is the only state that's completely in Appalachia. But different parts of the state take on their own regional characteristics. For example, up here in the northern part of the state, it's not as mountainous as other parts. Way up here, the culture is more like that of Pennsylvania than anything else. This little notch here, way at the top of the state, is what's called the Northern Panhandle. The weird shape of land exists because of some land disputes going back a long time ago that we won't get into. But there's actual people way up here wedged between Ohio and Pennsylvania. Many people can actually get to Pittsburgh in under an hour, so there's a decent job potential. This area also has a lot of abandoned manufacturing communities like other parts of the Rust Belt too. Wheeling is the largest city in the Northern Panhandle. There's 27,000 people there. Wheeling is your typical smallish West Virginia town, run down in a Rust Belt sort of way. It looks like your typical Rust Belt has-been place you'd see in Ohio or Pennsylvania. That's because it sort of is in Ohio and Pennsylvania. They're excited about the future of the Northern Panhandle because of a recent oil and gas boom up here. But as we'll soon see with the coal industry, putting all your marbles into energy is a dangerous proposition. If you're into the energy sector and want to live in this part of the state, it's cheap. $133,000 gets you your average house.
$133 000 за дом в этом прекрасном, замечательном месте. Какая природа, Апалачи, все дела. Мне это рабочее место не нужно, мне насрать, что меня в шахту путь закрыть.
With some new jobs and some new home communities sprouting up, this whole area here in north central West Virginia is sort of prospering, but not really booming. This is Clarksburg. Clarksburg is not really part of the
Если сейчас меня смотрят какие-нибудь отечественные шахтеры, откладывайте, вы наверняка все миллионеры, откладывайте $122 000, переезжайте туда, и я уверен, что шахтерам там платят больше.
But right next door to Clarksburg is Bridgeport. They're only 10 minutes apart, but Bridgeport is way nicer in terms of quality of homes and lifestyle. In fact, you could say Bridgeport might be one of the nicest places to live in the whole state. This is where the richest people in the whole state live anyways, statistically, where people make about $80K a year.
$80 000 в год, 8 миллионов в год. Слушайте, ну если казик крутить, я могу в месяц 80 тысяч дибы зарабатывать спокойно, абсолютно. Я думаю, что я могу себе позволить жить в этом районе. Ну, типа, серьезно. 80 тысяч, что это такое? Копейки. Да. Это 80 миллионов. 80 миллионов? Не может быть, это 8 миллионов.
Да.
Не могу перемножить, это тяжело. 80 тысяч на 100. В 80 тысячах 5 нулей. Еще плюс 2 нуля это 7 нулей. Нет, наверное, это 8 лямов, да.
I know that's not a lot, but it's West Virginia. There's actually some decent jobs around here in tech and healthcare. A home here is about $220K, which is about double the state average. Up I-79, even closer to Morgantown, is Fairmont, which is also a good place to live. And outside Morgantown, on the north side, is Cheat Lake, which is also a good place to live. And by nice place to live, I mean pretty safe, where there's newer homes that aren't falling down and where there's kind of stuff to do. Morgantown's a bright spot in this part of the state. There's 30,000 people here, making it the third biggest city in this whole damn place. It's home to the University of West Virginia. WVU is a big deal in this state, and most folks are big fans of its football and basketball teams. Morgantown is mostly a college town. There's a lot of drinking and restaurants and some actual culture.
Красиво.
I mean, this university once ranked as the biggest party school in the nation, folks. There's a good music scene here, and there's local artists. Homes here are in the 225K range, but there's some nice parts of town where you get closer to the 300K range. Morgantown's really trying to grow economically, and they're trying to shed their dwindling blue-collar
То есть
roots.
мне
Half the jobs
насрать
here in Monongalia County are white-collar
на все
types,
эти
stuff like
модные
management,
бары
education, and
хипстерские.
law. Healthcare is a big deal here.
Но
Ruby Hospital was called the
к
best
жене
hospital
будет
in the whole
приятно, если
state,
там
and
есть
it's right here in
ТЦ-пассаж.
Morgantown. But West Virginia
А
ranks
там,
in the bottom
кажется, он
10
может
for
быть.
hospital care overall, which is sad. In a super red state, this is the least conservative of all places you can live in West Virginia. Trump only won this county by 1 percentage point, which is by far the closest of any other county here. It's also the most
Удивительно. То есть единственный город, который похож на
diverse
город,
part of this whole state.
и в нем
Morgantown is. This part of
Трамп
the state up
еле-еле
here is
выиграл.
actually growing, and it's really one of the few places here that's growing. Over the last decade, there were
То
only
есть это
3
такой
states
местный
which lost
Екатеринбург,
people:
либеральная
Illinois,
помойка,
Mississippi,
как
and West
говорит
Virginia.
Соловьев.
Illinois and Mississippi barely lost any people, but West Virginia lost a whopping 3% of its population. It's becoming one of the oldest states, and there's really nothing here to attract a younger population either. Another part of the state that's doing sort of well is the eastern side of the state, or the eastern panhandle.
Блин, я уже вижу
Anything
человека
east of
на
Route 522,
каких-то
where the
сраных
state
лыжах,
kinda
это
squeezes
значит, там,
together
наверное,
here, and east of
гор
that is
много и
sort of
снежное
like
всё.
Marylandish. Lots of people out this way live in newish communities, and they drive into Maryland or DC for work. There's actually some sort of growth out this way too, in places like Morgan and Berkeley and Jefferson counties. This might just be the least country bumpkin part of this whole state outside of Morgantown. Places like Berkeley Springs, Martinsburg,
Парашная такая
Shepherdstown, and Hedgesville,
осенняя,
they're all places with under 2,000 people and cute little
как это
downtowns.
назвать,
Charlestown has
парашный
close to
осенний
6,000
вайп, вот
people,
этот, который
and
сейчас
it's
был
too a
на
good place
экране,
to
вот
live.
он прям как будто из
Harper's Ferry
Fallout
is widely
76
considered
взят. Не
one of the
удивлюсь,
neatest
если
little
это
towns in
примерно
West
эти
Virginia.
территории
There's
там
only
и
a few hundred
обыграны.
people way down here at the tip of the state, but
Не
it's
люблю
full of
осень.
culture and a ton of Civil War history. It's going to be real cheap
Кстати,
living out
никогда
this
не
way
бросайте
too.
пить
Taxes are really low,
осенью.
and homes are in the 300,000-ish range.
300
That might be
тысяч.
expensive for West Virginia standards, but come on now. This part of the state's also good because it has 3 of West Virginia's ski resorts,
О,
some of
ну,
which are
да.
cool little hidden gems out in the middle of nowhere. I know about one, but I'm not going to tell you about
Но
it.
я
'cause I don't
могу
want
сказать,
you to
что у
ruin it.
нас уже... Кстати, вот эта локация очень похожая есть в Fallout 76, тоже горнолыжный курорт. Я могу сказать, что у нас уже, где горнолыжные курорты, типа тех же Сочей, там строят уже не хуже все эти резорты
Many
и
of West
прочие
Virginia's
подяги.
natural wonders are also in this part of the state,
Бунгало.
including Blackwater Falls. If you move to West
А так
Virginia, you'd
выглядело
see a lot of
неплохо,
churches
конечно.
everywhere. The state ranks 7th overall for the percentage of people who are highly religious. I mean, it's West by God, Virginia out this way. It's a slow-paced life out here too. While there aren't a ton of high-paying jobs, and this is one of the least educated states, they're more of a life skill smart here.
Блин.
They're great with weapons, building fires without a match, building places without nails, surviving off the land, and working on cars.
Ничего не умею, к
Hunting,
сожалению.
of
Мне
course, is a
нужен,
big
наоборот,
deal in West
какой-нибудь
Virginia.
штат, где
For many
можно
people,
за
it's their
компьютером
survival.
сидеть.
If you moved here, don't be shocked if you hear about people eating coon, rabbit, chipmunk, squirrel, beaver, possum, bird, aardvark, platypus, ferret, porcupine, armadillo, or skunk.
This video brought to you by Mike's Barbecue on Route 19 in Flat Top. Come on down, we got some great food. That's Mike's Barbecue.
They also love hot dogs, but their favorite thing to eat are these pepperoni rolls. These might be the reason many people here are overweight. They're pretty addicting. They also drink a lot of moonshine, which for some people is
Как же
addicting
хочется
too.
сожрать что-то
While the
подобное.
indoor
Вот поэтому я
entertainment in
такой
this
жирный.
state's certainly wanting, there's endless outdoor stuff for those who are motivated. Many are not motivated. But with all the whitewater rafting, kayaking, skiing, rock climbing, hiking, mountain biking, and off-roading there is to do here, you would be looked at strangely if you told your new neighbor
Мне
you
нельзя
were
в
bored.
этот штат. Моя жена
Of
сразу
course,
купит
there's some
велосипед и
bad
начнет
sides of the
говорить,
state,
Илья,
which we will
поехали.
now get into. West Virginia has a well-earned
Надо
reputation
держаться
as
подальше
being a
от мест,
redneck
где
living,
есть
tobacco
жизнь,
spitting,
короче.
diesel pouring, Jesus loving, minority hating,
Дизельное
beer
порно. Что
drinking,
такое вообще
pill
дизельное
popping kind of
порно?
place. And there's no better place to find those types of folks than down here in southern West Virginia. There's a whole lot to talk about down here, boy, I tell you that. And this isn't going to
С
be
вином
easy,
дизелем?
nor will it be
Ус.
flattering, folks. It's actually pretty sad. And it all centers around
Не, ну
coal.
многим как раз подошло вот это место. То есть
be a coal miner's daughter.
пить
The
пивко
original
там
term for redneck began here in West Virginia.
целыми днями.
Back in the early 1900s,
И
the
есть
coal
бобры.
miners here used red bandanas to protect their faces from the coal dust. The term redneck stuck. Coal miners here have been living up to that moniker ever since. Coal's been a blessing and a curse to West Virginia. Forever now, it's how the state made a lot of money. But it's dying now. There's less workers needed to get the coal, there's less coal to mine, and we're quickly moving away from using coal. And as coal's dwindling, so are the state's fortunes. West Virginia has what demographers call the resource curse, the phenomena where places with an abundance of natural resources have less economic growth, less democracy, and worse development outcomes. We see the same thing in Louisiana. Today, coal is still 20% of West Virginia's economy. I mean, you can't farm here. But despite the writing on the wall, the state still props up the coal industry instead of diversifying its economy. People are freaked out. If working in a coal mine was all you knew, and coal was the only thing that put food on your table, what do you think they're going to do? Learn a new trade? No, they vote Republican. That's what they do. Politics-wise, this part of the state is the deepest shade of red. There are some hardcore conservatives down here, at least in terms of their voting patterns. McDowell County down here went 76% to Trump in the 2020 election. Of course, much of that was because of coal, but they're also going to want to defend their gun rights, and many people here are very much against immigration. There's also a pretty big anti-minority, anti-gay vibe down here in this part of the state. It's also very white down here too. As a state, West Virginia is the third whitest state of all, at 92%. Now, West Virginia used to vote blue every election, mainly because of the labor unions that supported the coal industry. But then there was a decline in the unions here.
Да, ну что я могу
Despite the fact
сказать?
that Democrats stand up for the working
Такое
poor,
ощущение,
for the disabled, and the
что
drug addicted, well, they still vote red down
жизнь
here.
там не
If it
сахар,
wasn't for coal,
несмотря на
you
то,
could
что
say a lot of
казалось
people
бы,
down here
да.
were voting against their own self-interests. But they're closed-minded and stubborn down in these parts.
По
I'll tell you
нашим
that.
меркам
Often
у нас бы
to a
говорили,
fault.
что там живут
What's also
ультрабазовые
interesting
люди, а
about
по
the deep
факту
redness
все
of the
равно
state is the whole
какая-то
Confederate flag thing you see flying all over
непонятная
West Virginia. I mean, West Virginia became a
ситуация.
state because it was against the South seceding and fought against the South in the Civil War. But they don't really seem to care about that much here today. Of course, another huge problem with southern West Virginia is the epidemic of drug use. In the early 2000s, doctors here began prescribing opioids at an astronomical rate. At one point, pharmaceutical companies sent 400 pain pills to West Virginia for every person living here. As a result, a lot of these coal miners and a lot of other people got hooked on drugs. And tons of people down here are now struggling to cope with that.
это,
For many
блядь.
down here, their whole day is spent
Вот
trying to
это,
get their hands on
конечно,
pills. And it's a problem among teenagers
интересно.
as well. An example
Мне,
is this
наоборот,
place
страшно
called
лишнюю
Oceana,
таблеточку
home to
принять. Хрен
1,300
знает, как
people.
она
They call it
повлияет на
Oceana
тебя. Тут
because of the sheer
высыпался
number of people hooked on
ладонь, как
opioids.
будто семки,
Many
блин.
southern West Virginians are also very poor. Middle class in West Virginia as a whole is $20K a year, but a lot of people down in southern West Virginia make way less than that, sometimes $100 a week. A lot of people down here grow up in these tiny towns with dirt roads and these hollers, and they hunt to save money. They get their clothes at yard sales, and sadly, a lot of kids don't have a lot of toys. It's really sad. West Virginia is sadly at the top for bad categories and towards the bottom for good categories. It's an unhealthy population where Walmart and fast food are the go-to options for dinner. West Virginia is second in obesity and second in smoking rates. West Virginia is also 45th in education.
Не, ну чувствуется, что
Only
место
2% of
неплохое,
West
но
Virginians
какое-то
polled
дикое.
say they
Я
believe
просто
their own public school
удивляюсь,
system
да,
is good. Only
сколько
Mississippi ranks worst overall in many
интересного
important
узнаешь про
categories.
Америку, если
West
смотришь
Virginia
про
might be
нее. Я
49th,
бы
but
никогда...
at least they aren't
Вот у нас
40th.
любят рассказать, да, мы
As a
живем там
result
в
of all
жопе
of this,
какой-нибудь.
a
Ну, грубо
declining
говоря,
coal
вот люди
industry,
приходят,
extreme
говорят, вот
poverty,
мы живем в
lack of
такой-то
jobs,
жопе, я не
the
буду
drug
какие-то конкретные
epidemic,
города
this part of the
приводить, но
state
многие
shedding
говорят, вот
people in
ни
droves. The
нормального
ones who don't
образования,
leave stick
ничего,
around
ни
for
работы и
family
так далее. А
mostly.
тут
Many are
смотришь,
too poor to
казалось
leave,
бы, да,
need family to lean on,
Америка,
or they don't want to leave
Великая
their poor
Америка, а
family
что-то
members
как-то
behind.
вот...
The West Virginia stereotype is one of shoeless, cousin-marrying hicks who live in trailer parks. This stereotype was perpetuated by the media, who forever
Тоже полно
portrayed rural
проблем, тоже
Appalachia as a place where
беднота.
people wear dirty clothes and had no shoes. The public's image about West Virginia and Appalachia in general appears to be stuck in the 1950s. Sure, in many parts of southern West Virginia, it is like that. And
скорее
sure,
жизнь
there's a
идет своим
hillbilly
чередом.
redneck thing here in much of the state, which
Я бы не
a lot
сказал,
of
что
West Virginians
загнивает.
take pride in. It's who they are. Come on now. And that whole
Просто
marrying
живут,
your
как
cousin
живут.
thing is just a joke. In reality, marrying your
Удивительно,
first
но
cousin is
большинство
illegal in West Virginia.
людей,
But it is legal in 20 other states
живущих
like
в
California, New York, and
в
Massachusetts. Just
радикально
saying.
плохих
Of course,
условиях,
it's not all
неважно
bad
в
here
какой
in southern
стране,
West
как-то и
Virginia.
не
There's some
стремятся
okay
из них
areas too.
выбраться.
Like there's Summersville,
Ну, то есть
the
могут
cute little
какой-то
mountain
трай
town here.
предпринять,
And there's the
но
New River Gorge, which is totally
бам,
awesome.
не
Some really
получилось, и
pretty
все,
areas
дальше
in West Virginia,
сидеть на
I'll tell
жопе,
you.
семки есть.
And now we're going to go to the
Пивко
western
сосать.
side of the state. This part of the state is much different than the rest of the state.
Много ли
A lot of
надо
terrains more like eastern
для
Kentucky and
счастья?
southern Ohio
Баклажечка,
more than anything
вечерком,
else.
с
There's
фуфыриком.
two major cities here, but they aren't
И
necessarily
вперед.
big places. Charleston's here. It's the state capital, but there's only 48,000 people here and dropping
Типа не
fast.
такой. Ну такой
Downtown
чё.
Charleston's uninspiring for the most part. It's
Я
pretty rough
поэтому и
in
говорю,
many
что
areas.
ничего
It's sort of
плохого нет.
sleepy, and there's a fair amount of homeless in the area. South of town, down by the hospital here is nice, as is Edgewood here. And East End, the South Hills area is nice, here across the river. In South Hills, some homes sell for like 500 to 600K, some for even $1 million.
Миллион
And they're
двести
trying
за этот
really hard to get
цыганский
people to
вайб.
move to Charleston and this state in general. They're
Кто
paying
вообще
people
может себе
12
позволить,
grand to move
блядь,
there
купить
and
за
specifically
миллион
targeting
двести
remote
тысяч
workers?
долларов,
So
кроме
get in on
каких-то
that,
звезд,
people. This area
кино
over
там
here
или
is Putnam
спорта?
County, and it's actually pretty nice.
Что это вообще за
Areas like
цены такие?
Hurricane and
Откуда у
Pace
людей
Valley are
такие
nice, safe
деньги? Кого
places
надо
without drugs and
обворовать,
crime like
кинуть?
you'll find in
Я
Charleston or
просто не
in
представляю ни
Huntington over
одного
here. Huntington is
законного
full of drugs,
способа
it's run
заработать
down, it
миллион.
has the second highest crime rate in the state. It's just about as
Ну
big
что
as
надо
Charleston,
делать, чтобы
but way
заработать
worse
миллион
in terms
долларов,
of quality
блядь?
of life.
Очевидно,
You
не
could say,
учителем
a lot of
работать,
Huntington's
блядь,
ghetto, and they
и...
couldn't
Ну,
argue
это же
about
невозможно
that. Don't
просто.
move to Huntington. But Marshall University's here, so at least there's that. If you have to live in the Huntington area, pick Barbersville. It's much safer, cleaner, and less icky. And finally, we have Parkersburg, which has a Rust Belt-ish vibe, and it's home to a bunch of oil and gas
Врачи
jobs. It
ипотеку
too has a
покупают.
major problem with drugs and crime. Sorry, Parkersburg. West Virginians have been
Почему в России
routinely
вообще
cast as
остались врачи?
victims,
Почему они,
locked in a struggle
имея,
that's
ну,
under
я
their
имею в виду
control?
врачей,
The
имеющих нормальное
reality is,
образование,
many
все
folks
не
here are
переехали
hardworking,
в Америку и
they're down to
Канаду,
earth,
если там
and they're
платят такие
resourceful.
безумные
They're
бабки.
often loyal and gritty, and sometimes too proud for their own good. Most West Virginians have little in terms of wealth, but many are generous. Although lots of folks here would
Там
take
другое
their poor
образование.
mountain towns over the chaos of big
Беспроцентные
liberal city
кредиты под
governments. And
0,5%.
while jobs are hard to come by in a lot of areas here, it's a really peaceful place.
То есть,
Can't put a price on peace
ну,
and
к
quiet.
примеру, сколько я
But
должен
they're
в
gonna have to
месяц
stop letting
выплачивать,
their
чтобы
state be
жить в доме за
defined by
миллион
its most
двести?
impoverished regions and stop driving away economic
Я понимаю, что мне
opportunities
никто не
from
даст на
struggling
него ни
communities can
кредит,
change their
ничего,
fortunes.
но, типа, к
Nobody
примеру,
wants to visit, much
2000
less move
долларов,
to, an area that appears to be in the
4-5,
throes of economic decline. Right now, it's pretty hard to be
9-10. Ну, кто
optimistic about
больше?
this state's future unless they diversify soon and go through some big changes.
Русский
I
диплом
think they
нигде
can
не
do it. I'm
котируется. Да
pulling
я
for
бы не
you, West
сказал,
Virginia.
если у тебя есть
You have
диплом
some
и
of the
есть
prettiest
какие-то
mountains,
научные
rivers, and
труды,
valleys in the whole world.
то
You
ты
have so
всегда
many
можешь
wonderful outdoor
попытать
opportunities.
удачу.
And you're the home of bluegrass. And everybody wants to be outdoors these
Большинство
days. We
людей
want
просто это не
space.
надо.
West Virginia could be a great place to raise a family one day. God
Врач —
love
это
'em.
призвание бескорыстное.
Okay, so that was a pretty good rundown of West Virginia, wasn't it? Yes, it was. It's a pretty nifty state, huh? And we didn't even have time to talk about everything. Like, how did we not talk about the Green Bank Observatory? Hello, it's like the world's
Там, видимо,
largest radio
дальше
observatory.
житель
Nor do we have time to talk about the-
Вест-Вирджинии вещает. Вот и все. Вот посмотрели. Ну, не знаю. Не знаю. Да. Пока Айдахо было самым восхитительным местом, которое я видел. Но, как я уже сказал, мы мало посмотрели. Так, друзья, я вижу, у вас просыпается интерес. Вы хотите меня... Да вы уже начинаете спрашивать. Где ставлю, на кого ставлю? Да-да, я сейчас отвечу, ребята. Я сейчас отвечу. Ух, меня там подсейвили. Я опять везде просрал. Последний раз, когда оставил. Практически. Но меня спасли какие-то ночные южноамериканские матчи. Они мне все отыграли. Потому что ни Бавария не победил, ни ПСЖ, ни Динамо. Все наоборот, короче, опять выиграли те, на кого я не ставил. Так, ну что, давайте посмотрим. Что у нас сегодня? На что можно грузануться? Победит ли за второй тайм Реал мадридский Сосьедад 2-0-2? Ну, кстати, неплохой КФ. Давайте, наверное, я сделаю вот так. Я на Ноттингем... Блин. Что Реал победит как-то, кажется, прохладным. Ну, давайте 500 рублей поставлю. 2220. Не хочу много грузить, потому что мне кажется, что Реал может и не выиграть здесь. Так, чего еще интересного? Так, ну это вообще вот это прогрев полнейший. Где-то они на даче играют в настольный теннис. Так, регби, Англия, Япония, Миннесота, Чикаго. Это... Так, ну вот Спортинг до сих пор не забил Мариненща. И на них такой маленький кайф, кстати. И, блин, вот гадать бы. Давайте представим, что Леон и Гавр мячей не забьют, а Спортинг, наоборот, во втором тайме забьет. На это тоже 500 рублей. И нужно большую ставочку сделать. Вот на что? На Торино против Салернитана. На Болонью тоже не хочется. Сейчас зайду в лайв, может там что-нибудь будет. 9Z победит в киберспорте. Так там 1.15 КФ, это что такое-то? Они, очевидно, победят. Но это надо, ну, можно было бы собрать сейчас быстренько. Тоже там, ну, экспрессик с каким-нибудь очевидным матчем. Но я лучше посмотрю что-нибудь в лайве интересное. Да. Тут интересное есть. Тут интересное есть. Сейчас я напикаю. Эти победят. Блин, не люблю на ничейки ставить, конечно, но... Кажись, здесь может быть... Стяо. Короче, накидал я такой вот 3.19, смотрите. В лайве Валор победит, здесь останется ничья. Короче, результаты не изменятся и заключил. О, нормально. Есть шанс 3 тонны занести. Если не занесу, ничего страшного, в принципе. Месяц все равно не такой плохой. Сначала мне казалось, что минусовый будет, но в целом... Ну, минус там, типа, начальный баланс я докидывал, но в целом ничего страшного. Посмотрим. Посмотрим. Может, что-то еще произойдет. Реал забьет, например. Ладно, гайс. Ну, я вряд ли завтра подрублю, хотя вероятность этого есть, но она крайне мала. И мы увидимся, скорее всего, либо в понедельник, либо в пятницу только, в самом конце недели, либо аж на выходных в субботу, либо в воскресенье. То есть неделю меня вообще не будет. Вот, и когда вернусь, уже будет DLC Киберпанка. Будем, соответственно, балдеть, кайфовать в шикарную игру, в которой вообще не было багов на релизе, кстати. Прошу заметить, несмотря на то, что некоторые гнилые люди распространяли информацию. Вот. Ну, давайте, обнимашки. Спасибо, что сегодня посидели со мной. Да, такой себе стрим был. Ну, не знаю, что-то ничего придумать я сегодня не мог. Как-то унылое состояние. Но надеюсь, что вот эта неделя отдыха пойдет мне на пользу. Поправлю здоровье, вернусь и смогу что-нибудь интересное высрать. Давайте, гайс. Спокойной всем ночи и хорошей рабочей недели. Хорошо побатрачить. Это обязательно пожелание, иначе кто мне даст потом денег в донат, кто мне даст, да, вот так вот. Поэтому вот, работать. Так, чтобы не забывали о том, что существуют овалы. Как обычно, ножника закину, потому что есть большая вероятность того, что в октябре я буду овалить на втором канале и аукционировать на основном, и кроме этого никакого контента не будет, так что чтобы вас прогревали, гонки всякие, у Женька посмотрите, наверняка интересные заезды сегодня, как обычно, будут. Ну и всем удачи еще раз.